I recently gave my LTCL examination in which I got a distinction. Here's how I spent the last 1 month leading up to the exam. So, for the month leading up to the exam, I tried to perform my pieces or my entire repertoire as much as possible in front of an audience. Performing in front of an audience can give you information about yourself, about your program that you may not have realized. For example, in my case, I learned that my mouth gets really dry when I'm nervous. So I decided to just keep a bottle of water next to me during the exam. And after completing an entire piece, not just movements, but the complete piece, I would take a sip of water. The other thing that came up during performances is mistakes that I wouldn't be making in the practice room that I somehow made in front of an audience. Now, it helps if these mistakes are the same, but if the mistakes keep changing, then you do need to sort of work through the piece at a slower tempo. Maybe that could really help. I think that's something that happened for me, and I did work through a lot of my pieces at a slow tempo. For the last 2 weeks leading up to the exam, I tried to play my entire program through every single day. Now, one thing I tried to do was make myself intentionally uncomfortable while playing the entire program. Like, for example, on one particular day, I tried to stay cold while playing it. So, what I did is I just didn't turn on the heating in my room on that particular day, and I didn't wear a jumper, so that helped to kind of keep me cold and slightly uncomfortable. On another day, I think I wasn't feeling the best emotionally, but I still tried to get through my entire program in that state. Basically, by doing this, you tell yourself that you're able to play your entire program irrespective of how you feel, because during the examination there are several things that aren't in your control. For example, the temperature of the room that you're going to be playing in, or you could get a little upset before the exam about something else, but it still kind of gives you practice to play through your program irrespective of how you feel. For the last 1 week leading up to the exam, in addition to playing my entire repertoire through, I also started recording each of these playthroughs. And then while taking a walk, I would listen to them. It's kind of me just passively listening to my playing. And every time something really stood out, I would make a note of it. What I did realize is in that 1 week, I wasn't making a note of too much. It was just small things here and there which I felt I'd like to improve on. And that's a good thing, because 1 week before the exam, you don't want to be making drastic changes, or you don't want to have too many things in your mind for that 1 week leading to the exam. The 1 week leading up to the exam, I would also ask myself the same question every day. If the exam was tomorrow and I could just make one change today, what would it be? So this usually points you in the fastest possible direction. And also it's a reminder to yourself that for the 1 week you're prepared, you're ready to give the exam. It's just about sort of making small changes that could potentially increase your marks. On the day of the exam, I did two things. One was slow practice, just take bits and pieces off my pieces and play through them very slowly. My exam was in the afternoon, so I did have the whole morning to practice, but I think I did maybe an hour and a half or so of practice that day. I did do a little warm up here and there, and then also certain technical challenges that I had before, I just tried to sort of play through them one last time before the exam. Now, here's one more thing I did on the day of the exam, and I can't really tell whether it helps or not. But when you're nervous, your heart tends to beat faster and you feel like you lose control. Now, this can be particularly dangerous when you're playing, let's say, a fast scaling passage in a piece where you feel like you're really losing control of what's happening. So, what I did was, so there is a hill that's not far from my house. I climbed up the hill, and obviously, my heart was racing after climbing up the hill. while climbing down the hill, where typically when you're climbing down a hill, you feel like you're not really in control of the steps you're taking. While kind of climbing down the hill, I was singing to myself certain bits and pieces of my pieces where I feel like the nervousness can really cause you to go off track, which is basically the fast scaling passages. For me, it's mainly the fast scaling passages and pieces. So while climbing down the hill, I was singing slash humming those bits of the pieces. And it's kind of to remind yourself that your heart's beating, you feel like you're not in control, but at the same time you know the piece, you're able to like go through it anyway. So also it was important for me to kind of tell myself that I'm confident, and I'm feeling good about my pieces. So even if my heart's racing, it should feel like I'm happy and I'm excited about playing these pieces through, even if I'm really just nervous. But I think, that's it's kind of about just tricking your mind into believing that you can do it anyway. Now, all of this was over and above what I would practice anyway. Maybe for the 1 week leading up to the exam, I did mainly just the run throughs of each of my pieces, plus a little bit of work. But for the month leading up to the exam, or 2 weeks leading up to the exam, I was still practicing as I would otherwise. I was still making changes and trying to make improvements here and there.